2NURFM 103.7. It is that time of the fortnight where we bring in our Professor of Science. He is from the University of Newcastle, John O'Connor. And John, today you're wanting to continue the topic that we've been talking about today, and that is memories. Gee, the brain is a very fascinating thing, isn't it?
And it's so hard to investigate it because, you've got to try and probe something which has an enormous number of connections and is a very complicated process. And there have been many, many studies. And in fact, what I'm going to talk about today is not one of those studies, but it's actually a review, which is a group of researchers in the US and Canada got together and they read the whole literature. And in a review, they tried to summarise that and identify the state of knowledge and come through with a coherent picture.
Which is great, because if you just look at one piece of the puzzle on its own, coffee, for example, is it good or bad for you? Well, just wait around till next month.
That's right. And this is such a complicated process. And there are different aspects to it as well. So what they're looking at is why are you challenged as you get older with memory? And there are various aspects of this. I mean, it's not all bad. And having lots of memories is an opportunity to be more creative and make better decisions. But I certainly have times where I can't remember the name of someone or something that I really should know. And what they've tried to do is, from this research, identify why that happens. And there are basically three things that change between when you're young and when you're old in terms of decision making. And it's because your brain doesn't work the same way. So the first thing is when you create a memory. I'm sitting here looking at the studio, looking around me. As an older person, I will be activating different things, not just you, but the things that are happening around, the things which are showing. So I activate too many things which clutter up the system.
Right, so this, as opposed to when you're younger, you just have a singular focus?
A bit more tunnel vision.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, the next thing is...
Explains a lot, actually.
Next thing is, when I walk out of here, my brain should start to do a bit of a clean-up, going, well, I was talking to Mark, the rest of it's immaterial, I'll forget that part. Well, the brain... once you get older, doesn't do that really well. It keeps that peripheral material, that extraneous material there. And then when I sit down and talk to someone saying, well, I had a chat with Mark this morning, when it comes back, it'll start to bring in peripheral material, not only from there, but other things, maybe when I walked into the building or something. So it actually, instead of, again, focusing on just one thing, it tries to bring too much in.
Right, so instead of just the main points about the fact that we're talking memory today, it may be you brushed a mosquito off at the front door, or you scratched under your left arm or something, just things that really are just peripheral that could just go.
And that explains why you might be sitting with some old codger and say, I talked to Mark, and I got a mosquito by here.
There we go.
Oh, did you see the rain out there?
Yeah. What did you talk about? Oh, I can't remember that.
Yeah. So the mind. They talk about the mind wandering, but it's actually not wandering. It's actually bringing in lots of memories that really shouldn't be brought in, but they were not wiped, so they're still sitting there. They were created unnecessarily, and they weren't erased. There wasn't a bit of a clean-up afterwards, and then the mind tends to afterwards start to link these in. Now, if you're trying to be creative, or if you're trying to make a decision which requires lots of input, that's not a bad thing. You can make a decision which takes into other factors. But if you're trying to come up with a coherent statement, or a concise statement, then these factors have affected how you process ideas.
It'd be nice if we could actually, now recognising what the difference is there, if we could actually reframe our brain a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if you can do it with training. I mean, certainly different people's minds work different ways. I mean, if I try to remember something, invariably I find it's alphabetical. What's his name? It starts with D. It probably ends up starting with B anyway, but close. But it seems that my mind, many things actually have this alphabetical categorisation, and so an hour later it'll pop into my head, probably because my brain stopped handling all the peripheral stuff, and has eventually worked its way through the whole process and come up with the memory I was after when I wasn't consciously trying.
All right. Is there a couple of other things that we're going to track through there as well?
No, I think the main thing is that this this shouldn't actually be seen as a negative, because having this a wealth of knowledge does come about. In fact, it's rather than talking about a cluttered mind, they try to emphasise that it's actually an enriched or an elaborated or overloaded mind, but it does bring with it wisdom and knowledge and cognitive functions that surely depend on being able to access and probe memory. So it's not all negative. There are positives, and of course that's why elder people are still of benefit.
Perhaps too, if there's a police lineup where, I mean, if you're younger, you just focus on the fact that the bank was robbed. The person with the older mind is focusing on the fact that they had a green pair of pants with a yellow zip or whatever, and they can get those other peripheral details.
That would be very useful, wouldn't it?
All right, thanks
Mark.
Thanks as always, our Professor of Science at the University of Newcastle, John O'Connor, on 2NURFM 103.7.
A broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.